You are now tuned in to the Lockdown Society Media Hour on Vibe AZ 247, Arizona's #1 station for culture. And I am your host, 087638, OG Moppy Mopp, Remopolis Tia'nt Pleasant, and CEO of Lockdown Society Media, with the voices from the pen. Well, I'm just going to jump back in this week where we were at last week. The information, I have so much information that I've gathered for you all in my aim to show you all that slavery has never ended in the United States of America, that the 13th Amendment actually did not abolish slavery, but expanded to 100% of the country. And I'm going to show you that in the coming weeks by using the numbers, using the laws, following the money, showing the labor. And I intend to get started on that mission here right now today. Let me get started with what I call the Mississippi Trap of 1865. This is the law enacted then. I'm going to read you two sections, the first two sections of that law. And I want you to see if any of these apply to you right now today, as far as being a vagrant. These are the Black Code laws. Section 1. Be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Mississippi that all rogues and vagabonds, idle and dissipated persons, beggars, jugglers, or persons practicing unlawful games or plays, runaways, common drunkards, common night walkers, pilferers, lewd, wanton, or lascivious persons in speech or behavior, common railers and brawlers, persons who neglect their calling or employment, misspend what they earn, or do not provide for the support of themselves or their families or dependents, and all other idle and disorderly persons, including all who neglect all lawful business or habitually misspend their time by frequenting houses of ill fame, gaming houses, or tippling shops, shall be deemed and considered vagrants under the provisions of this act, and on conviction thereof shall be fined not exceeding $100 in 1865 for your edification. $100 equals today $3,500. Therefore shall be fined not exceeding $100 with all accruing costs, and be imprisoned at the discretion of the court not exceeding 10 days. I guess 10 days is about $100. Section 2. Be it further enacted. Listen up, white people, this applies to you. That all freedmen, free Negroes, and mulattoes in this state over the age of 18 years found on the second Monday in January 1866 or thereafter. Okay, so we're in the after. We're in the day after. It says, as of Monday, January 1866, or thereafter, with no lawful, if you have no lawful employment or business, or found unlawfully assembling themselves together either in the day or nighttime, and all white persons so assembling with freedmen, free Negroes, or mulattoes, are usually associating with freedmen, or usually associate with freedmen, free Negroes, or free mulattoes on terms of equality, or living in adultery or fornication with a freed man or a free woman or a free Negro or free mulatto shall be deemed vagrants. That's how they start putting you back into slavery, white folks. You start hanging out with black folks and you got caught up. Yeah. See, when they couldn't own us no more, technically, they wrote new chains in the ink. The Mississippi Vagrancy Laws of 1865 didn't end slavery. It renamed it. They said if you're a free man without lawful employment, you're a criminal. You can go to the chain gang. If you're walking without a white boss, what about a black boss? I said if you're walking without a white boss, you're a vagrant. You're a vagrant. You're a criminal. You're a criminal. Chain gang. If you don't pay a tax that you never even signed up for, the sheriff sells you to the highest bidder. That's the law, people. Section 7. Look it up. Legal auction block. They outlawed idleness, but only for us. They outlawed equality, even the poorest whites. And then they bribed those same poor whites to become overseers, deputies, bounty men, and jurors in this new plantation called the justice system. Now we understand just us. That's how they built unity in white folks, really, by selling out black freedom. Every free man became a convict in waiting. Every courtroom, a slave market. Every jail, every holding pen for the next crop of legal slaves. And that same design still runs today, thrives today. The 13th Amendment's fine print keeps it alive. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime, is how the law reached. They didn't abolish slavery, people. They outsourced it to the courts. And Mississippi wrote the blueprint for America's prison economy, a system that feeds on convictions, one black body at a time. I've been looking very closely at the data. It's all right here in front of my face, also clearly defined, that billions upon billions of dollars are made monthly from prison labor, from slavery. The more slaves, the more production for your business and plantation. And who are the strongest workers you can find? Melanated men, black men, Latin men, Asian men whom are melanated men, which are therefore two black men. The slave masters' numbers show them exactly where the strongest workforce is, and they come right into the neighborhood, right into the body, y'all, right onto the res, and trap us, recruit us to break laws, watch snowfall, and then turn them laws against us. Shout out to John Singleton, rest in peace, my brother. It's the same skunk. It's the same funk. In coming weeks, I'm really going to break down the numbers of who is getting rich from legal slavery and slave labor and how they're getting rich. However, I have to get to that next week because this week I have to revisit next week. And let me set this up for you. Okay. I had another phone call from Mr. Darwin Wells Jr. and it was unexpected. I was expecting to hear from him in a couple more weeks. I was preparing for the show and I was driving home on the freeway when the brother called. Now, all my listeners know I never turn away phone calls from the brothers and sisters behind bars. Never. And I'm not talking about just black people. I'm talking about all people. I'm talking about the white brothers and sisters behind bars too. Just because I point out the racism and just because I point out how it affects specifically black people and how it specifically affected me and the places I've lived and grown up, don't think that I'm against white people. I'm just for me and for some justice for myself and for the nation, actually. Okay. At any rate, for those reasons, I pulled the car over and I took Mr. Wells' calls. Now, to understand why this call matters, that I played again this week after being with him last week, we only have to revisit the night that's etched into South Mississippi memory. Tragic evening. On October 23rd, 2008, Michael and Linda Porter of Hattiesburg were driving south to watch their grandson play football. They became lost on Highway 63 and pulled into the Conoco gas station at Grierson Avenue in Moss Point, Mississippi, to ask for directions. As they stepped out of the car to seek help, Michael Porter was approached by 3 young men. Michael attempted to get back in the car and drive away, but he was shot. He later died at the hospital that I was born, the Singing River Hospital. Investigators described the crime as one of opportunity. The assailants took advantage of strangers unaware of the gas station reputation for drugs and robberies. A crime of opportunity. Just happened, spurred a moment. Couldn't have been more than that, right? So says the investigators, but horrible. Guys made a bad decision on the spot. Mr. Michael Porter was a 44-year-old husband and father and had become a grandfather only recently before his death. And his wife, Linda, survived the ordeal and later testified against the teenagers who had ambushed them. The suspects, Darwin Wells Jr. was 15, Telvin Benjamin was 14, Terry Hyde was 15, and Alonzo Kelly was 17. A 14-year-old, 2 15-year-olds, and a 17-year-old. They were quickly arrested. Moss Point police said all 4 participated in the planning, the robbery, and assisted one another after the crime. Prosecutors charged them all as adults with the charge of capital murder. At trial, a Jackson County jury convicted Wells of the lesser offense of deliberate design murder and sentenced him to life in prison. He was 16 when the verdict was handed down. One of Mr. Wells' co-defendants later obtained a new trial and was acquitted. He had some of the same circumstances as Mr. Wells. Seriously. He was acquitted. Another of the co-defendants pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact, and a third was eventually convicted of capital murder. The community, the community of Moss Point and Pascagoula, Mississippi was enraged, and they were very sad. They responded by marching against violence. I'm talking about Black people marching, as we always do, against an injustice. Just so happened that this injustice was inflicted upon a white person by young Black men from the community. Did not lessen the trauma to the community. Did not lessen the empathy shown by Moss Point and Pascagoula. Those students marched and they raised money, and they gave that money to the surviving wife of the victim. Thank you, Moss Point and Pascagoula, Mississippi. You always make me feel good about being from there. Okay, people, let's understand. It's very important for me right now to emphatically say that lockdown society media does not, nor do I, condone any crime by anyone at any time. Michael Porter's murder was senseless. It was horrible. It was tragic. Yet I also know too many people in prison right now for crimes, including murder, that they didn't commit, or for youthful mistakes that should not be defined as life in prison. That knowledge, that personal knowledge of free men in prison for murder, free men doing life, is why I answer every call and listen very carefully. I won't stop that. Giving space to incarcerated people to tell their stories is not an endorsement of anyone's actions. It is a way to check a system that has gone unchecked for far too long. We need to remind ourselves that justice must be firm, yes, but also free, fair, and humane. When I spoke to Darwin Wells Jr. on air last, he maintained his innocence in this crime. The judge noted that Wells shot Porter to get money for the county fair. In the same sentencing, the judge says of Mr. Wells after he appealed his sentence, Circuit Judge Dale Harkey rejected the plea, writing that Wells was not an inexperienced, immature teenager when he shot Porter. He said instead Wells had been an active criminal, using drugs and selling drugs, stealing money and some guns, and exhibiting antisocial behavior. And that's what the judge said. Now, further down in the order is what the judge say that Mr. Wells committed this crime for money to go to the state fair. In one part, you're saying he was not an inexperienced, immature teenager. No. He was a fully mature, vile criminal, stealing money to go to the state fair to buy cotton candy and ride a Ferris wheel. Do you see? You see what I'm saying? In short, the legal system continues to view Mr. Wells as the trigger man, and Michael Porter's family still bears the pain of that loss, unchangeable. And I'm sorry for your losses. Yet hearing the condemned man's voice on the phone yet again reminded me why our voices from the pen segment exist. Wells is now well into his 30s. Well, 33. Having spent his entire adult life behind bars. From his perspective, he was a 15-year-old caught up in a disastrous plan of the government's, and he feels the weight of being branded a killer. Whether or not you believe him, his life illustrates broader questions. How do we balance accountability with the possibility of growth? What happens when teenagers commit crimes with irreversible consequences? How much room for redemption exists once a sentence is pronounced? As I drove after the conversation, I thought about the Porters, about the community that continues to walk against violence, and about the many people in prison who insist they have been overcharged or unfairly sentenced or improperly charged in the first place. I also thought about our audience. Lockdown Society Media is a platform committed to confronting uncomfortable truths. We stand with victims, yet we also scrutinize the system that produces both crime and punishment. My conversation with Darwin Wells Jr. does not excuse what happened in Moss Point, Mississippi that night. Instead, it explores how a teenager became part of a tragedy and what lessons he has drawn from more than a decade behind bars. I invite you to listen with empathy and critical thought. With that being said, here's my second on-air conversation with Darwin Wells Jr., a voice still in the pen.